Promise me you'll behave, Lascaux said. Camus gazed back at him with his large eyes and everlasting smile and tilted his head to one side. Always good, came his mental message. Sure, and I'm a prince in a fairy tale. Camus began to flex his forelegs and wag his tail, as he did whenever he was happy. What with everything that had happened during the last season, Lascaux had barely had time to pay attention to his friend, and now that he looked at him more closely, he saw that the little creature had grown much bigger. So when did you grow so much? He asked, seeing the village of Scad visible behind Camus' head. Camus stopped dancing and looked back at him. He tilted his head to the left and blinked hard. After plenty of experience of his little companion, Lascaux knew that this gesture meant he had not understood. He would have to use his gift. He sought his inner energy and found it in his chest, where it formed a pool of serene blue water. He called upon his skill of animal communication, searched for Camus' mind, and found it in the form of a golden aura. "You've grown a lot," he transmitted. "Since when?" He used his skill so often now that the process was practically instantaneous, almost as easy as using actual words. Camus inspected his own body with interest. His legs and tail were now longer, and his body much thicker. No. You're as big as a dog now. It's going to be hard to hide you. You'll have to stay camouflaged most of the time, invisible." Camus looked at Lascaux, then back at himself. "Play! Dog!" Lascaux rolled his eyes. "No, that's exactly what you can't do. Hide whenever there are people around. Always." "Me play! Fun!" Lascaux snorted. Sometimes it was like talking to a wall. "Only with us, if nobody can see you. With other people, no." "Egil, us?" "Yes, Egil's one of us. You can play with him." Camus looked around, first at the forest, then at the snow-covered fields. "Where Egil? Play." "Egil isn't here. He's gone to see his brother, Arnold." "Why?" Lascaux looked at the little creature. Not only had he grown in size, he was also far more capable of communicating and reasoning now. He was increasingly asking more and more questions, and was no longer content with, "because I say so." Now he wanted complete answers. He remembered that this was the 5th year since he had come into being, and his progress was beginning to be noticeable, like that of a child who is beginning to understand more and more. Which meant he would become more curious, which in turn would invariably get him into more trouble. Lascaux sighed, and a puff of winter vapour came out of his mouth. He was beginning to feel cold, even though it was already noon. Camus, of course, did not feel the cold. "Because that's what families do. They visit each other, the same way I've come to Scad, to see Martha and Ulf." "Family?" Lascaux considered the answer for a moment. They were not related by blood, but he loved them as though they were. After all, he had no one left. The thought and the memory of his parents saddened him. "Yes, good people." Camus began to dance on the spot, flexing his legs as if expressing joy because he had a family. Lascaux contemplated at the village, with its snow-covered roofs, the smoke coming out of its chimneys, the fields around him completely white with the snowfall of the previous night, and the mountains in the background. He felt a sudden nostalgia. "Trotter, play!" Lascaux turned in time to see Camus beside Trotter, whom he had left tethered to a roadside tree. "How did you get there so fast?" "No, you can't play with him. You know you scare him, and even more so now you're bigger." Camus tilted his head to the right. He did not look very convinced. Trotter snorted and moved away from him as far as the reins which held him tied to the tree would allow. "Camus, let him be!" The little creature gave a little resigned shriek and went back to Lascaux. "Good, Camus," he said, and stroked his crested head. Camus licked his hand with his blue tongue. The two friends walked together along the road which led to the village, with Trotter following them. As they approached the entrance to the village, Lascaux sent a mental message to Camus. "Hide!" Luckily, he obeyed. Two Western soldiers on watch duty came out from under a porch where they had been sheltering from the cold and the snow, which was falling heavily once again. "Halt! Who goes there?" called the older of the two. "A Westerner," Lascaux replied, warily. He was wearing a dark cloak, and his ranger weapons and medallion were hidden. Rangers were not welcome in the West. They served the new king, Thorin.
Para seguir escuchando este audiolibro gratuitamente, haz clic en el enlace de la descripción y podrás escucharlo completo sin coste gracias a la prueba de 30 días de Audible.